Alright, sorry for any bad audio. I thought that I would try out like a new layout for everything. It feels very, minus the squeaky chair, it feels very Doctor Doom vibes. And this was the only thing that I had in the Fantastic Four colors, so it's really hot right now. Welcome to Reboot Review, or something. I'll figure out a name for this series later. With the oncoming generation of comic book movies that are focused more on accurate depictions of characters and storylines, I figured it's about time that we go back to the older movies in the comic book history and review them before they are rebooted to figure out what is changing in the new series. If you think this is a cool idea and you want to see more, please subscribe and make this graph go up. Despite the plethora of projects coming out from now until then, I do think the actual start of this generation of comic book movies is going to be the movies coming out in July, Fantastic Four, First Steps, and Superman. By the way, I actually kind of like the name Fantastic Four First Steps. I think it fits the family vibe pretty well, but I'm not currently a Fantastic Four reader and gatekeeper like everybody else on Twitter seems to be, so maybe my opinion's wrong. For the first bit of this series, I'm going to be watching in interchanging order a Fantastic Four and then Superman movie leading up to the July releases. Now, I'm not super knowledgeable about every character from every comic book, from every leg of the universe, so I might have some blind spots, but if I know something is inaccurate and I am able to figure it out, I will try to explain the inaccuracy as best as possible so we can all learn something leading up to these new movies. Since I've already talked about Superman a lot over the course of this channel, I think it's about time that we start with... Okay, so for all the reviews that I'm going to be doing leading up to July, I'm going to be structuring the videos hopefully the same way. I'm going to try to talk about the story, the good parts, and the bad parts. I'm going to focus on a couple things that are accurate to characters, that are inaccurate to the characters, and then I'm just going to give my review. These are going to be short videos in this series, but hopefully I can explain enough of what I like and what I don't like about these movies to get through it. It's easy to say this movie looks bad. It's from 2005, so by today's standards, literally 20 years in the future, things look a little different nowadays. But honestly, I think it looks kinda good. I'm a sucker for practical costumes. It reminds me of like the Ninja Turtles that I liked watching when I was a kid, and it's done very well. Although obviously the Human Torch is CGI, it's really hard to make Fire Person CGI look bad, so I think it kind of works out here. And I know that Doctor Doom isn't necessarily accurate to his comic counterpart. There's a couple things that I think they did pretty accurately. From what I can tell, I think he's just a very complicated character, and they couldn't do that in an hour-and-a-half long movie, so he just kind of serves as a way of connecting all the characters and pieces of the plot together, but I'm gonna talk about that in the next segment. I think that the actual Fantastic Four themselves are really good. They have a lot of character and very fun interpersonal relationships. Reed Richards, for example, really does feel like a super genius who doesn't see himself as worthy of Sue Storm's love. Speaking of Sue, we'll get to her later. Ben and Johnny feel like they really have this like older and younger sibling energy. They're always fucking with each other and fighting each other, but ultimately when it comes down to it, they have each other's backs, which is very important for these two characters from my understanding. I also like the Thing's story here. I like that he's the only one who's really affected by the powers in a negative way, and he doesn't want them at all. It's really interesting that in the end of the story, he decides that in order to protect the ones he loves, he has to choose to make this massive sacrifice. And I think it works out, although I haven't seen the next movie yet, so I don't know how they work with that in the next one. Now, to the bad stuff. The way they treated Sue Storm is incredibly bad and fucking tragic. It's sexist. We can just say it. We can just say the term. It is a sexist depiction of the character. All that she does in this movie is have men fight over her and be naked. It makes for good clickbait, but it's incredibly disrespectful to the actress and the character. I do think her power is pretty cool and arguably one of the strongest of the entire Fantastic Four, but it's pretty underutilized. Most of her use was, again, being naked to sneak around people even though the other characters just walk by them and nobody cares. I guess they just wanted her boobs to be out. But in the actual like final fight against Doctor Doom, she just turned invisible, did like one kind of interesting attack before getting hit despite being invisible and being like knocked out for a second. Although in the end, she does use her powers to contain what is effectively like an ultra super nuke. And that's pretty cool. But compared to everybody else in that scene, even the person doing the super nuke, she's the only one who really is harmed in the fight aside from Doctor Doom. Reed Richards is just like frozen for like a couple minutes and then is perfectly fine. The Human Torch, who is making a super nuke in the middle of the city, is just like fine. He's not affected by the heat or anything. And Ben Grimm just kicks a fire hydrant and like pushes the water. But Sue's literally bleeding. Like she's having a nosebleed because she's focusing so much of her like brain power and energy into containing a nuke that could disintegrate the fucking world. And now we're going to talk about Doctor Doom really quick, because like I hinted earlier, Doctor Doom is not very accurate. At least from what I can tell from the limited research that I did, he's not really associated with the Fantastic Four's like origin as a team. He's very heavily involved, but it's usually after they form. The most he really does is like really hate Reed Richards before the team develops, because of some incident in college relating to a portal to like hell. Doctor Doom is a man who really cares about the people of his country. He believes that the entire world would benefit if it was ruled by him the same way that he rules Latveria. A lot of his abilities are based on his access to extremely expensive, high-tech technology and a lot of magical ability, which makes him arguably the most powerful man on the planet, if not the universe. But his beef with the Fantastic Four is just being like a super ultra next level hater of Reed Richards because of that incident in college that caused him to be like really scarred, which is why he wears a metal mask. He also has a really strong rivalry with Reed Richards, since Reed doesn't believe in anything supernatural and Doctor Doom does, which caused the dispute with the Hell Portal, which made it explode. In this movie, Doctor Doom is just a really rich guy who wants to fuck Sue Storm, because why wouldn't that be it? In the comics, he doesn't love Sue. There's a couple like other universes where they're married, but usually it's just for power. He doesn't really love anyone except for Valeria, who even then he'll sell to the devil for more power. The most he'll do with Sue Storm is in relation to her and Reed Richards being in love. He wants to hurt Reed any way he can because, again, super ultimate ultra level hater. He also shouldn't be involved in the accident that makes the Fantastic Four and does not have superpowers. He wears a metal suit not because his body is made out of metal, but because he sees his body scars as imperfections and seeks to cover them up. He does have like lasers and stuff, but that's usually just technology mixed with a little bit of immense magical power. He's not just a billionaire who wants his company to make money. The movie decided to make him Norman Osborn from the Raimi movies mixed with Magneto, because they're two recognizable supervillains, and Doctor Doom is way too complicated for an hour-and-a-half movie. Overall, I think this movie is full of fun character moments leading to a superhero family feeling like a real family. Despite two horrible adaptations of two incredibly important characters, driven by a need to turn an extremely complicated villain into a character that everybody knows would work, and have the lead actress be naked. I think it was definitely a product of its time, which is no excuse for the sexism, but it does explain a lot of the shortcuts they took to make the aspects of characterization and plot work, because the movie's only like an hour and a half long, like I said multiple times, which is why I think it's fine. Ultimately, I'm going to give Fantastic Four 2005 a solid 7 out of 10. Hey, so yeah, I'm trying something new with this series, and if you made it to the end, please subscribe. This was a way shorter video than I thought it would be, honestly, and my next videos are going to be a little longer, but I think that I covered pretty much everything that's important for this one. There's not a lot going on. Please subscribe. And comment your thoughts. You're going to do it anyways, but I should tell you to comment in case if you forgot. All right, goodbye.